The most dangerous lies are not the ones we tell to harm others, but the ones we tell to protect ourselves. For 19-year-old Liam, who was about to commit an act of profound betrayal, the lie felt like self-preservation. He was a quiet, introverted university student, and his biggest fear was looming before him: the mandatory geography department field trip. It was a 3-day sentence of forced smiles, awkward small talk, and team-building exercises in the wilderness. For an introvert like Liam, it was a special kind of hell. His father, Mr. Evans, was a single dad and the bedrock of Liam's small two-person world. Their relationship was a fortress built on a foundation of deep, unspoken trust. Mr. Evans was a thoughtful, observant man who saw the fragile walls his son built around himself, and while he worried about Liam's tendency to isolate, he always gave him the space and trust to be his own man. It was this sacred trust, his father's greatest strength, that Liam was about to weaponize for his own convenience. His deceitful little play began on a Thursday night: a dry, theatrical rasp of a cough, a mumbled complaint about a headache. By Friday morning, the performance was in full swing. He was a convincing portrait of misery, huddled under a blanket on the sofa, an artful pallor on his face from a skipped breakfast, shivering slightly for effect. His father's face was etched with concern. "You look terrible, son," he said, feeling Liam's forehead. "You're burning up. You absolutely cannot go on that trip." "I'll write a note to your professor. I don't want to miss it," Liam mumbled weakly, the lie tasting like poison on his tongue. "Don't be silly," his father insisted. "Your health comes first. I'll stay home from my fishing trip this weekend to look after you." Panic flared in Liam's chest. "That wasn't part of the plan." "No, Dad, don't," he said quickly. "You've been looking forward to this trip for weeks." "I'll be fine. I'll just sleep, drink some tea." "Please, you should go." After much convincing, his father reluctantly agreed. He made Liam a pot of tea, left a bottle of flu medicine on the nightstand, and after another worried look, finally headed out for his own weekend away. The moment his father's car pulled out of the driveway, Liam's miraculous recovery began. He threw off the blanket, sat up, and sent a single text to his best friend Mark: "The eagle has left the nest. Operation Sick Day is a go." 10 minutes later, Mark arrived with 2 large pizzas and a stack of video games. Liam's dreaded weekend of forced socializing had transformed into an introvert's paradise. They fired up the game console, the living room soon filled with the sounds of digital explosions and triumphant laughter. For the next 24 hours, Liam lived in a blissful, guilt-free bubble of junk food and virtual warfare. He was the master of his own universe, the clever son who had bent reality to his will. Meanwhile, 100 miles away, Mr. Evans was staring out at a lake being pelted by a relentless, torrential downpour. The fishing trip was a washout, the roads were flooding, and the park rangers were advising everyone to pack up and leave. Disappointed, he packed his gear and started the long drive home. All he could think about was his sick son. "At least I can get back early and make him some of my famous chicken soup," he thought, a gentle smile on his face. He pulled into his driveway late that Saturday afternoon. He was surprised to see Mark's car parked out front. "That's nice of him to visit his sick friend," he mused. He unlocked the front door as quietly as he could, not wanting to wake Liam if he was sleeping. He was carrying a small bag from the pharmacy with a new, stronger brand of flu medicine. But the house was not quiet. He could hear loud, energetic shouting coming from the living room. It was Liam's voice, full of life. "Yes, right there. On the left. I got him. Let's go." Confused, Mr. Evans walked silently toward the living room doorway and peeked inside. The scene before him made his heart stop. His son, who was supposed to be in bed with a fever, was on his feet, controller in hand, screaming in mock triumph at the television screen. He was the picture of perfect health, surrounded by a mountain of empty pizza boxes and soda cans. He was not sick. He was not even a little bit unwell. Mr. Evans stood there in the hallway, the bag of medicine feeling impossibly heavy in his hand. He looked at his vibrant, healthy son, and then he thought of his own canceled trip, the long drive home fueled by worry. The trust he had so freely given had been used, manipulated, and thrown back in his face for a weekend of video games. He didn't feel anger. He felt a deep, profound, and hollow sense of being utterly betrayed. Liam, lost in the thrill of his digital victory, was the first to notice the change in the room. His friend Mark's face had gone pale, his eyes wide with fear, staring at something over Liam's shoulder. Liam's triumphant laughter died in his throat as he slowly turned around. His father stood in the doorway, his fishing gear still, dripping rain onto the carpet, the small pharmacy bag clutched in his hand. He didn't look angry. He looked empty. "Dad," Liam breathed, his voice barely a whisper. You're home early, Mr. Evans didn't respond to him. He looked at Mark and said, in a voice that was unnervingly calm, "Mark, I think it's time for you to go home now." Mark scrambled for his things and was out the door in seconds, leaving Liam alone to face his father. Mr. Evans walked into the center of the room and placed the bag of flu medicine on the coffee table amidst the pizza boxes. "I came home early because I was worried about you," he said, his voice quiet and heavy. "The whole drive, all I could think about was making sure my sick son was comfortable." "Tell me, Liam, while I was worried about you, who was worried about me?" The question, so simple and so deep, left Liam with nothing to say. The foundation of their relationship, the trust he had always taken for granted, felt like it was crumbling to dust beneath his feet. I'm sorry, Dad," he stammered. I really didn't want to go on that trip, so you lied," his father stated simply. "You performed. You used my love and my concern for you as tools to get what you wanted. You let me care for a ghost." He shook his head, a look of profound hurt on his face. "I'm not going to yell, Liam. I'm not going to ground you or take your things. You're 19. You're an adult. But a relationship between adults is a conversation built on trust. And right now, I find I have nothing to say to you." And with that, he walked away, leaving Liam standing alone in the messy living room. The days that followed were a new kind of punishment, one far worse than any shouting or restriction could ever be. It was a punishment of silence. His father was not cruel. He was simply absent. He would make dinner for them both, but they would eat in silence. He would ask polite, functional questions. "Do you have clean laundry? Did you finish your homework?" But there were no shared jokes, no questions about his friends, no late-night talks about life. The warmth of their home had been replaced by a polite, sterile coldness. Liam was an adult, free to do as he pleased, but he had never felt more like a lonely child. The emotional void his father had created was a gaping wound. He had gotten his weekend of escape, but he had paid for it with the one relationship that truly mattered. After a week of the unbearable silence, Liam knew he had to do something. He couldn't fix this with a simple "I'm sorry." He had to show, not just tell. He spent an entire afternoon writing a letter. He didn't just apologize for the lie. He wrote down the truth. He wrote about his social anxiety, his fear of big groups, his feeling of being an outsider, and why the camping trip had felt like an impossible mountain to climb. He admitted that lying had been the coward's way out and that he had deeply broken his father's trust. He folded the letter and left it on his father's pillow. That night, he lay in bed, his heart pounding, not knowing if anything would change. A little while later, there was a soft knock on his door. His father entered, holding the letter in his hand. He didn't look angry or disappointed anymore. He just looked tired and perhaps a little bit sad. "This," his father said, tapping the letter, "is the truth. This is the conversation we should have had a week ago. Thank you for this." He sat down on the edge of Liam's bed. "I didn't know you felt this way, son. You've never told me." "I was embarrassed," Liam admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "You never have to be embarrassed with me," his father said softly. "We're a team. We face the mountains together. You have to let me know where they are." It was the first real, honest conversation they'd had in a week. They talked for over an hour, not just about the lie, but about Liam's anxieties and how they could find better ways to cope with them together. The next morning, Liam came into the kitchen to find his father at the stove. "I was thinking," his father said, a small, warm smile returning to his face. "Since I missed my fishing trip, and you missed your camping trip, maybe we could learn how to make that chicken soup I was going to make for you." As his father showed him how to chop the vegetables, the familiar warmth and easy conversation filled the kitchen once more. Liam knew it would take time to fully rebuild the fortress of trust he had so carelessly damaged, but he had learned the most important lesson of his life. The loudest punishments aren't delivered with an angry voice, but with the deafening silence of a love that has been betrayed, a silence that can only be broken by the hard, honest work of earning that trust back.